Hey, what's up, guys? Pete Alonso here from the New York Mets, and I'm here with Alfred. And I just want to say thank you so much to all you guys for listening to the Metropolitan Report. It's a really awesome show. You got some great insight on Mets baseball, and yeah, it's a great place where Mets baseball is talked about, and we got a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year. And a lot of really great things coming from this team in the clubhouse, and I'm really excited to keep the ball rolling. And it's been such a fun season, and I'm really thankful for everybody coming out to the ballpark and supporting us, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank everybody for listening to the Metropolitan Report, and Alfred, keep doing your thing, and as always, LFGM.
Hey everybody, it's Alfred Parsart Jr. back with another edition of the Metropolitan Report. And before I begin this edition of the Metropolitan Report, I just want to remind you guys to go down below, hit the subscribe button. That way, anytime a new video pops up on this channel, like that popular Juan Soto video that you all love, you'll be getting a notification, being the first people to know that there's new content on the horizon on the Metropolitan Report podcast. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and of course, if you know any Mets fans that like sports talk, like baseball talk, like Mets podcasts, or they just like good conversation in general, send them this podcast. Greatly appreciate it. So, on this edition of the Metropolitan Report here on this Tuesday afternoon as we record, a couple of interesting tidbits to unpack. We're going to go over the Mets' recent series against the Cubs this past weekend. Of course, the Mets set to play game two against the Pittsburgh Pirates in a couple of hours after beating them last night. So lots to discuss. So first things first, the Mets this past weekend took 2 out of 3 from the Cubs. Offense was on display for much of the weekend. The Mets won on Friday night 7-2. They dropped a close game on Saturday 6-5, and they won on Sunday 6-2. One standout, and this is going to be very surprising, I'm going to say this, but one standout of this past weekend's series against the Cubs, none other than Brett Baty. Now, I know I've been very critical of Brett Baty. If you go on the channel previously, there's a video about Brett Baty where I said that this time his stint with the Mets in the major leagues must be the last chance he gets. I think Brett Baty may have heard me. As you can see on the lower third below me, Brett Baty had a very positive series against the Chicago Cubs team. Of course, the Cubs came into that series in first place in the NL Central, so no small feat to beat up on them at all. Baty had a 500 average. He hit 3 home runs and had 6 RBIs against the Cubs this weekend. Now, the question is, did Brett Baty show us enough in that series to make me and the rest of the Brett Baty critics out there change our minds? The answer, unfortunately, is no. Now, I understand he had 1 home run on Friday. He was the catalyst of the offense on Saturday with the 2 home runs, but I'm still not convinced. I think it's a fluke. I think this whole series that he had against the Cubs, he just happened to catch fire at the right time. Baseball is about who's hot and who's not. And even a poor performing player can get hot every now and then. Brett Baty, he just happened to get lucky. That's all I'm going to chalk it up to. Um, yeah, that's all I'm going to chalk it up to. Brett Baty just happened to be the recipient of some good luck this weekend. As we saw, Brett Baty played in the Pirates game yesterday in the first game of that series and went back to his normal self. Didn't do a thing. Um, Now, granted, I know what people are going to say. Well, the Mets played another first place team, and they played against a team with a good starting rotation and an okay bullpen. How could you not be impressed? I'm thankful that Brett Baty was the catalyst of the offense, helped propel us to win the series. Granted, he didn't play in the series finale on Sunday, outside of an inning of defense, but again, I'm not impressed with this whole uh, this whole Brett Baty situation. Since 2022, Brett Baty has had chance after chance after chance, And even with chance after chance after chance, still, for whatever reason, just can't get it together. Now, like I said, I give him credit. He had the home run on Friday. He had an infield single as well on Friday. But I just am not impressed with with Brett Baty overall, because in the at bats where he didn't, now he went 4 for 8 this weekend. And the other four at bats where he didn't produce a hit, he looked like the same old Brett Baty. Uninspired, flat at bats, poor body language, falling behind in the count early. And when you do those things, you're not going to succeed at the big league level. And once again, Brett Baty did not show me anything to be impressed with outside of those four good at bats that he had against the Cubs. I think it's a fluke. Now I could be wrong. If he can replicate this and keep this hitting momentum up, I will gladly come on here and say I was wrong and tip my hat to Brett Baty and say that, I was wrong. I take the L on this, but I don't think we're gonna see much more out of Brett Baty. Brett Baty is on borrowed time because Jesse Winker comes back in about 6 weeks. Now, granted, the Mets do have options. They could always send Jose Azocar back down to Syracuse instead of Brett Baty, but that remains to be seen. It just depends on if Baty can continue to hit, which, judging from recent history, I don't think that'll be the case. Of course, Winker is an outfielder. Azocar is an outfielder. Azocar should stay, in my opinion. Azocar will also give you plus speed and better defense than Baty will in the infield, but that remains to be seen. But nonetheless, Brett Baty, 4 for 8, 500 average, 2 home runs and 6 RBIs against the Cubs. He will play tonight. He is in the starting lineup tonight against the Pirates. That series is going to continue a little bit later on. Again, yesterday, first game of the series, he didn't do much, but I don't expect much out of Brett going forward. I hate being a pessimist, but when you've given somebody a million chances and they only succeed once in a blue, I mean, what? After a while, you get used to the same thing over and over and over. So that's my take on Brett Baty. I am not convinced. If he can do this, if he could keep this up the rest of this series against the Pirates, or even this weekend against the Yankees, I may change my mind. Speaking of interesting things, the Mets have been linked in a trade rumor. Of course, this past weekend, the news came out that the Mets are eyeing Luis Robert Jr. of the Chicago White Sox. Luis Robert Jr., one of their best players in recent history, huge slugger, a Cuban export who has come to Major League Baseball. He's been hurt the last couple of seasons. Seems to be fully back on board here. However, batting 186 with 5 home runs and 16 RBIs, poor numbers, but anybody who's supposed to be a star playing on a team like the Chicago White Sox, who last season that Chicago White Sox team broke the all-time win-loss record for most losses in the season, a record that I almost thought would have never been broken, that was set originally by the 1962 Mets. Thank you, Chicago, for bailing us out. But Luis Robert, interesting dynamic here. Of course, he's a star slugger for the White Sox, just having a down year this year. From the tape I've seen on Robert this season, he seems to be unmotivated. And again, you're a star player playing in a rebuilding team. Why would you be motivated to produce? That's just my opinion. But Robert, I'm surprised, wasn't traded last season. Again, the White Sox were a dumpster fire. They fielded offers for Garrett Crochet, their starting pitcher last season. He didn't go until this offseason to the Boston Red Sox. They held on to him after the deadline. They did the same thing with Luis Robert. And Luis Robert at one time was one of the most feared sluggers in all of Major League Baseball. Luis Robert made his debut in the 2020 shortened COVID season. And for the most part, Luis Robert has been more unavailable than available. I mean, there were only 60 games in the 2020 season. He played 56 out of the 60. 2021, he played 68. 2022, he played 98. Most available year was 2023. He played 145 games out of 162. 2024, he played 100. He's played 37 so far this season. Lifetime, he is a 262 hitter, 93 home runs, 26 RBIs. He is a stolen base thief, however. He has 15 stolen bases this year. My take on Luis Robert, I think with a change of scenery, his numbers will drastically improve. Looking at Luis Roberts' career numbers here, his best year was batting wise was 2021. He had a 338 average. In a full season that he played in 2023, he was a 264 hitter. That same year, 38 home runs, 80 RBI. And I think that this guy could be another Yoenis Cespedes. You plug him in a lineup where he has help because outside of Andrew Vaughn, he has no help offensively in that White Sox lineup. You put him in this Mets lineup, this current Mets lineup, and he'll be surrounded by Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and no discredit to Brandon Nimmo and Carlos Mendoza, but Brandon Nimmo is not a cleanup hitter. You could plug a guy like Luis Robert in as your number four. Could plug him in as a number three and move Pete down to four, even though I like Pete batting behind Soto, or you can move Soto to three, put Robert at two, whatever you want to do. Currently, Luis Robert Jr. is the cleanup hitter for that White Sox lineup, but I like Luis Robert a lot as another guy who adds speed. When you have guys like Brandon Nimmo who steal bases on a team, now we have another stolen base threat in Luis Robert Jr. The White Sox are reported to want Blade Tidwell if the Mets and the White Sox make any type of a deal here. Um, I'm going to give you guys my take on what a deal should look like. Here you see the graphic here, mock trade between the Mets and the White Sox should they do business. If I'm the Mets, I'm going to want Luis Robert Jr., and I'll even take Mike Vassell. Now, Mike Vassell is a reliever for the aforementioned White Sox. The Mets do need bullpen help. Mike Vassell, I believe, can be a good bullpen piece. His current numbers as they stand on the season, he's made appearances in 12 games. He's 2-1 with a 1.88 ERA, 15 strikeouts in 24 innings pitched. He is a rookie, so he's going to have minor league options. This is his first year in the bigs, so they could send him up and down between Syracuse and Flushing should things work or not work out. Then, if I'm the Mets, I'm going to give up prospect Don Hamill, who is a pitcher. I'll give them Tidwell. Tidwell was called up for one start in St. Louis earlier this season, got shelled as an ERA north of 15. We still have Brandon Sproat in the minors, so losing Tidwell is not going to hurt all that much. I mentioned in a Metropolitan report short and on the last edition of the report that I am okay giving up Ronnie Mauricio because I don't see him fitting in this ball club when he's healthy. Of course, with Acuna and Lindor and Vientos all manning the positions that Mauricio plays, we just don't have any room for him. So I don't mind parting ways with Ronnie. And Brett Baty, who I don't believe in right now, I'm okay with doing that swap. Baty, Mauricio, Tidwell, and Hamill for Vassell and Robert Jr. Now, as the rumored reports have stated, talks between the two sides have not heated up yet. They're just in preliminary discussions. Right now, everything is a rumor until proven otherwise. But I would like the acquisition of Luis Robert Jr. I think you're going to get a great bat. You're going to get some good base speed, and you're going to get decent defense, especially because he can play center field, a position that's been in flux ever since Jose Siri got hurt. That would make the Jose Siri situation when he's ready to return a couple months down the line even more complicated. But I do like the addition of Luis Robert Jr. here in Flushing. I do like the idea of him batting fourth in the lineup. So I am okay with a Luis Robert acquisition. All right, and now we have some Mets injury news to discuss here on the report. First off, Sean Manaea, the starting pitcher who was placed on the injured list on March 27th with a strained right oblique, missed all of spring training. The targeted return date for him is sometime in mid-June. He recently began throwing off of a mound back on May 11th for the first time since spring training. However, he must still advance to a live batting practice and eventually have a lengthy rehab assignment in the minors since he basically had no spring training. Positive sign for Manaea. Again, this Mets team is in first place, and they've been able to do it without Manaea, who again had a magical second half last season to lead the Mets to that NLCS run that they had. But um, always a positive sign. I know Manaea will be a welcomed addition back to the rotation. And then Paul Blackburn, who was slated to start this season in the bullpen, he's been on the injured list since March 27th with right knee inflammation. His expected return is sometime this month. He's made 4 minor league rehab starts and is scheduled for one more with AAA Syracuse on May 16th. After May 16th, he will need to be reinstated to the roster. So the Mets are either going to have to clear a rotation spot if they want him to start, or they're going to have to clear a bullpen spot. My guess would be that Genesis Cabrera, who the Mets just picked up, the veteran reliever to help out in the bullpen, he will probably be the odd man out. I would say it would be Daniel Nunez because I haven't liked what I've seen from Nunez, but Nunez is a lefty, and the Mets need a lefty in the bullpen. Right now, he is the only lefty the Mets have in the bullpen. And then finally, catcher Luis Torrens, who on Mother's Day back on Sunday, he took a foul ball to the lower extremities where no man wants to be hit. He is day to day, has not been placed on the injured list. He exited the Mother's Day game after taking a foul tip off the groin area from Cubs outfielder Kyle Tucker. Torrens spent several minutes in visible pain, was on the ground, and did not move. But manager Carlos Mendoza later said that Torrens is currently, quote unquote, in a better spot. I don't foresee Torrens missing time. They would have put him on the IL immediately. That's just something that's probably going to take a couple of days to subside. Granted, if any man has ever been hit below the belt, you know how painful that is, especially getting hit there with a baseball at 80 miles per hour. But I think Torrens is going to be okay. Worst case scenario, if Torrens has to miss time, Hayden Sanger is waiting in the wings as he's been in Syracuse since Francisco Alvarez has been called back up. Of course, Francisco Alvarez here and there is going to need a day off. So even if Torrens, worst case scenario, would need to miss a few days or a few games, Torrens at this point with Alvarez healthy, Torrens only plays about once a week anyway. So no harm, no foul there, but I think Torrens is going to be okay. Now, we want to turn our attention to the current Mets Pirates series that's going on. Of course, the Mets won last night on a walk-off sac fly from none other than the polar bear himself, Pete Alonso. So the Mets have already taken one game of the series. They play again tonight in a couple of hours. A game where the starting pitching matchup is going to be Mets ace Kodai Senga, 4-2 with a 1.16 ERA, going up against Mitch Keller, 1-4 with a 4.40 ERA. And then tomorrow, also at 7 p.m., the Mets are sending out Clay Holmes, the closer turned starter. He's 5-1, 2.74 up against Bailey Falter with a 2-3 record, 4.36 ERA. I hate to say it, but the Pirates are one of those teams. The Pirates coming into today, 14 games under 500. They're 14-28. This is a team that, even with all the offensive firepower they have the old man, the incumbent, the veteran, Andrew McCutchen, playing some good baseball for a guy who is in his upper years baseball wise. They have Key Brian Hayes at third base, a kid who, when they first called him up, everybody thought was a Hall of Fame sure prospect. O'Neal Cruz, the powerful Jack Sawinski. But for a team with all that promise offensively, they sure don't put up runs at all. Brian Reynolds, the switch hitting outfielder, also on that team. And when an aging veteran, Andrew McCutchen, is your best hitter, that really does say a lot. Yesterday, Paul Skeens pitched. Skeens yesterday, and Paul Skeens, the incumbent rookie of the year, he won that award in the NL last season. But Skeens yesterday did not strike fear into the Mets at all. The Mets winning 4-3. We look at the line on Paul Skeens. He pitched 6 innings, only 1 earned run, struck out 6, but it was the bullpen that failed him. And then you look at the Mets yesterday. David Peterson, 6 innings. He gave up 2 runs. And the bullpen, Jose Buto, Daniel Nunez, and Huascar Brazaban held firm there. But going forward, my predictions for this series, I'm predicting the sweep. Get the brooms. The Pirates playing uninspired baseball. They made it close and respectable yesterday, but I think that's only because Skeens was on the mound. I think today Mitch Keller is going to get shelled. I think tomorrow Bailey Falter is going to get shelled. This Mets offense is not going to play around here. They did they got the win last night, and I'm predicting a full-fledged sweep. I don't see the Pirates winning not one game of this series at all whatsoever. So, the Mets are going to have an off day on Thursday. I know we were a little late in bringing you this episode, but nonetheless, my apologies on that. Scheduling issues prevented me from dropping the episode yesterday when I wanted to, but we got one this afternoon. We'll be back Friday morning because the Subway Series is this weekend. The Mets traveling to the Bronx to go to the Cathedral of Baseball, Yankee Stadium, to play the Yankees in a 3-game series. First time the Subway Series is 3 games apiece on each side since 2022. And we will be joined by my good friend Mike Guido of the Bi-Coastal Baseball Podcast. He's going to stop by and talk some Yankees versus Mets with me and make some predictions, and we'll see what's going on. But we will be back then. And yeah, I know that this episode of the Metropolitan Report is a bit abbreviated than what we're used to giving the fans, but Mets schedule and my schedule haven't really coincided these last couple of days. But again, if you like this podcast, hit that subscribe button. You'll be able to be notified when content drops. We'll have content between now and the next episode on Friday in the form of Metropolitan Report shorts. And share this podcast with fellow Met fans. And as always, the only thing left to say is LFGM. Let's go Mets. I'll see you.